Welcome to the Leadership Sandbox. I'm Hannah, part of the team here. Today, we're bringing you the powerful conclusion of our three-part series, Switch Hats, Not Values, Leading with Clarity and Sanity. Join your host, Tammy J in this reshared episode that beautifully rounds out our series. She'll unpack how to bring crystal clear communication to every interaction, ensure your values guide every decision, and ultimately help you lead with more sanity and impact. Let's kick off our shoes, grab a pen and paper, and step into the sandbox.
Hey friends, welcome into the Sandbox. I'm excited to have you join me today. You know, if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, wherever you listen to great content, that's great. But you may want to head over to either our website at bondgroupenterprises.com and go to our podcast page to watch the video, or head to the YouTube channel. And because you're going to want to know about these hats that I'm showing you right now. There are 5 of them, and they are the 5 distinct hats that we wear in our roles as leaders of people, as leaders of project, as leaders of teams. We wear these different hats, some at the same time, and some are very distinct and only to be used by themselves. So I'm going to show you why I have created these hats for a visual impact when I'm out working with teams. You see these hats that I'm holding here. You can see the distinctive colors of them. They are very different in their variety. They're very different in their texture. They're very different in what I'm going to show you when I turn them around, because the impact of them are so different. I created these with a friend of mine that when we were giving a workshop helping to up-level leaders into and new managers into that next level of leadership. What are the key characteristics of effective leadership? These hats came into play, and they are still used today quite a lot. And what I recognize, and the super cool fact of it, is that when we give a visual of changing between the different hats that we're wearing as leaders, we actually open up the mind of the other person to seeing us in that role. So we're not just asserting a title, as so many of us do, because I'm the leader, because I'm the boss, because I'm the team manager. We insert these titles and we assume that everybody understands what that means, or we make the assumption that people understand what they can expect from me when I'm in that role. The reality is these hats are all being worn at different times and for different reasons. And it's important that we give the team members a visual to know when I'm in each role and what that means. And I want to start out with hat number 1. Hat number 1 to me is actually, well, they're all very important, but this is actually probably the most important because it's the foundation of who we are as leaders, as who we are as people. And it's our values hat. And it is the driver. I'll put this on my head here. How's that going to work? It's the driver. It's the foundational driver of every decision that we make, of every conversation that we have. We operate from our value system. Beliefs and values are what drive us forward, right? When I understand what my core values are, and I go into leading a team or go into having a bold or difficult conversation, I am actually able to use my values to influence the way I have that dialogue. Here's what showed up for me. It was so interesting to watch this with a leader that I work with. And she came into one of our sessions and she said, you know, Tammy, she said, I am so grateful for the hats that you taught us about. So, well, why is that? She said, because I realize when I'm meeting with a certain group of peers in the workplace, I kept coming up against this same frustration. I would go into the meetings frustrated because I knew what they were going to be talking about, what was on the agenda, and how it was going to really just raise my blood pressure, she said. But when I did my work on understanding what my core values were first, she said, I realized what was driving the frustration in these meetings was because it was a values misalignment. What the other peers were bringing into the dialogue about this specific topic, it was topic specific, was going against my values. And that is foundational, as I learned, she said, to what drives the decisions and the way that I communicate or the way that I respond and react. She said it was really hard for me to be in a discovery conversation when on the inside, all I kept thinking is, what the heck are you people doing? When she realized, she said, that it was about the values misalignment, she changed the conversation. And she was actually able to bring up to the people, to the peers, hey guys, listen, my value is integrity. One of my core values is integrity. And when we talk about this topic in this way, it actually goes against that value for me. So let me tell you what I'd like to do or how I'd like to shift the conversation. But I want you to know when you see me reacting, she said, I tell people it's my values that are driving that for me. She says, I'm still working on how I respond versus react, but it was freeing. It was liberating for her to know that her values were driving the reaction that she was having to this one specific group of people on this one specific topic. And when she was able to say, it's my value, and here's what that means, and here's what I need instead, the value is foundational to how she communicates. And so therefore it opened up the dialogue because it was a misalignment, but it was also just a confusion of the view from each person's chair around this topic that she was tackling with this group. So I share that to say values are at our foundation as leaders, one of the hats, and we wear this hat all the time. It really doesn't change. It doesn't come off. Our core values are our core values. If you're like me and your family and your self-respect and your integrity are those core driving values, you know when something rises up against you, it's probably pressing against one of those values. So before I go into my next hat of I'm a leader, right? So I'm going to be a leader in the workplace, then the leader, and just for sake of visualizing here, I'm only removing the values because I can't quite make the leader hat fit with the headphones on. So the leader is the title. The leader is the position. But there are times when we go into those conversations where, again, values driven as a leader, that I get to have those conversations with team members about what I see the view from my chair as the leader, or what it is that I want, what it is, the behavior that I'm needing. But more importantly, as we know in leadership, it's not about forcing or pushing people. It's about empowering and empowering people to be motivated on the inside, that intrinsic motivation factor, right? That's what leaders do. So leader is that person that comes in to cast vision about where we're going, right? To be clear about goals and objectives and come in to set the stage and the course for what the team is going to produce. And there are times when we go into those meetings with individuals or with teams where we get to say, hey, y'all, I'm going to wear my leader hat right now. Here's where we're going. Here's what we're doing. Here's what I want to see from us. Let's all talk about it. Let's collaborate it. Right? There's those moments where leader is going to be more collaborative, and that's important. Here's where leaders can sometimes trip up, though. Leaders can trip up when, and I'm actually going to pull this one out. I changed the order on you. When we go in as what the leader ought to be doing, but we're dropping the hat of boss, right? Where it can get tricky when we wear that hat of boss in the workplace. It can get tricky on us when we are inserting boss as title in the way that is demeaning to people versus saying, hey, as leader, I'm casting vision, I'm switching hats. And there are times where I want to be directive. And that directive as leader also will require boss to show up and boss to be a decisive decision maker, confident in what I'm doing to impact the team in the direction that we want to go. And there are times when boss gets to show up and set the direction in a different path because maybe the team's gotten out of alignment, right? We're misaligned. And boss gets to show up in that moment and be directive of what it is that I want and I need. And that's important. And it's important to understand the nuance between leader and boss, always, however, driven with our values, right? We're always driving with our values. That's at our foundation. But it's important for us to understand the difference between leader and boss. I may be the boss That may be ultimately my title. And if I get to the point where I've got to insert boss, that means that I have gone beyond where the capacity or the abilities of leader is in in the role of the hat, right? They're not listening to the leader, the inspired vision. They're not listening to how we're empowering you, but yet setting those clarity of expectations. And now when the boss comes in, it's usually a more challenging conversation, and it's okay, right? We wear the boss hat not to boss people around, but to be steadfast in the direction that the leaders have cast for us to go, right? So when you pull out the boss hat, that's that directive conversation that we want to course correct a behavior, and we want to course correct it quickly. Now I'm going to get into the other two hats. Now, this hat here probably causes the most problems of all the hats. This hat right here, this is our friend hat. What's important about the friend hat, you're thinking? Well, if you were a peer that got promoted into a position of leadership, you're now, as I call it, a freeder. You're a friend and a leader. So now what do we do with that? Well, what's important to know is that the people on your team, if you were promoted as a peer into a leader position, and now you're leading those peers, they're still seeing you with your friend hat. And they're expecting you to show up at work as the friend hat, or they're not sure what that leader in you now is going to look like because they've been having the friend conversations with you in the workplace, at the coffee pot, the water cooler, over the cubicle wall, out in the parking lot, about how they didn't like the boss, right? How they were frustrated with the boss. They were frustrated with the way that leadership did the work or didn't do the work or gave out the assignments. You've all had those conversations as what? As friends. Yes. And friends, when they become leaders in the workplace to the same group of peers, it's important that you right out of the gate, sit down and have a conversation. And this is where the visual aid of the hats come in handy. You can sit down and say, hey, Joe, Sally, and Henry, we have been friends in this team. And I know that Matt moved on and he's no longer our leader of our team. That's now my position. And I'm really honored that I was promoted into this position. And here's what I know. We've been friends and we've operated as friend. And now I want to talk about what it is to have me as the leader, what it is that I expect as the leader, what it is that I need from you. But I also want to hear as the leader what it is that you need from me, because I've heard it as a friend. But now let's actually get into solution mode with folks and put on that leader hat, right? And take them through. So how do we solve for the problems that we talked about in the parking lot? How do we collectively, I want your input to solve for them so that as the leader of the team, I can raise all of us up, because the tide raises us all, right? Tide raises all ships in the harbor. So let's be a part of that tidal movement together versus being tied down by the conversations that we had as friends. So I'm going to take off my friend hat and I'm putting on my leader hat to have a conversation with you. But that also includes, and here's what's so important that I see people miss this when we go into the workplace and we get promoted as a peer. This just happened actually in my husband's team, where a peer got promoted and they actually don't equip the peer or the team on how to step into the new role of leadership and how to step into that level of authority that we've now just been given. And where it gets into trouble, or where we get into challenges with it, is when we go in too strong and maybe we just put on the boss hat. Okay, now I'm the boss of the team, right? And we go in really strong and heavy. And then you've got the friends on the backside that are going, I'm not working for you. I know the conversations you had with me at the coffee pot last week. I know the conversations at the bar at happy hour that we had as friends. I know what you said when, right? They're holding on to what you did as friend. They're not seeing you as boss. And what is important is you want to put yourself in the position of leader. because leaders impact people through dialogue and conversation to motivate and inspire them in the direction that we want them to go. We are vision casters as leaders. We empower people and equip people with all of the tools to do the job and to do it most effectively and efficiently. That's what leadership is. Leadership is, I'm in it with you. I'm not directing you. I'm not pulling you or pushing you. I'm in it with you. That's what leader does. What friends, when we come out of that friend hat mode, what's important to know is that we want to switch out and visually tell people. There are times when we're out, if we're going to go to a happy hour, yeah, I'm going to be the friend in that mode, but I'm always going to be the leader, right? I can put the friend hat on and take it off. That leader hat stays. And it's important that for you, if you've been promoted as a peer, that you let people know that you let them know why that's important, or that is important, that you are always leader now. And yes, you've been friend, but as leader, I want to take off the friend hat and I want to ask, what is it that we can do together to collectively make the changes that we all talked about when we hung out in the friend zone? Now, here's where this gets tricky for our teams. Even if you come in and you take on a new team, you've got people that have friendships on the team, and the friend hat can get in the way peer to peer as well. Because peer to peer, when we have a project that needs to be done and one is falling short of the other, they're staying in the friend zone too long instead of stepping up into the, what is the next hat? The just do it mode, right? There is the time for us as leaders. There are the time for us as peers where we just got to do it. We just got to get things done, and we got to put the just do it mode on and take away the friend hat. And sometimes there's the time where we got to come in as the boss and we got to say, okay, here's what I'm needing to see. And yes, I know you've got questions and I want to answer all of your questions, but our timeline is very short. We have 37 minutes to get this done. So I need us to get in and just do it. That's the directive part that your people want and need to see. That's where the just do it hat comes in. And to have the visual, or to say the visual, actually I had people ask, can we buy a set of your hats? Yes, actually, I'd be happy to sell them to you. They want to know, okay, wait, I got to tell them, listen, it's time to just do it. Yep, I know that as the leader, you want me to be inspiring and help cast vision for it. But right now, I'm coming in with the boss mode, right? I'm coming in boss mode. And boss mode says, just do it. We'll talk about it after. But here's what's key, boss mode, is that when you come in as boss mode, right? Remember, we're also operating with our core values, right? We're still operating foundational with our values hat. Okay, so as integrity is one of my values, when I come in as boss mode, the integrity and really the self-respect side of me comes up strong, because I respect myself enough to know that, okay, I'm coming in as boss mode and I'm going to be direct, but my respect for other people and the values that I share, that I have, the values are, I'm coming in as boss mode and I'm going to need you to just do it. And we'll talk about it on Wednesday at 2 p.m. or we'll talk about it at the end of the day at 3 p.m. I've got some time to explain why we're in just do it mode. But right now we got a timeline and it's important. See, here's what happens. We get stuck in the, I want to be nice. And if I'm nice and if I'm friendly, then people are just going to do it for me. And no, they're not all the time. In fact, studies show that when we hang out too long here in what we call here at BGE, the friend zone, when we stay too long in the friend zone, people take advantage of that. And studies show how people will take advantage of the boundaries. They'll press boundaries with you. Why? Because they don't think you're serious when you're in friend zone. So when you are in leader mode, right, and you're operating from those values, it's okay. We can get stuck being what I call the freeder, right? We can be the friend and the leader at the same time. And that confuses people when we are being the freeder. So we want to take off the friend hat and sit down and say, I'm taking off the friend hat and I'm going to have a leader conversation with you. Here's the behavior that I'm noticing, right? This is the situation. This is the behavior. Here's the impact of that. And now here's my expectation. That SBIE is so important. You all have heard me talk about SBI and E in previous episodes. So I want to encourage you to think about the situation, behavior, impact of every conversation you have. And if you're staying in that freeder zone, right, the friend and leader zone too much, it's going to confuse people and they're not going to take you seriously. The risk that you play when you're freeder is that people don't really know when it's time for you to step in as leader, or when you're going boss mode on people. That's going to blow them out of the water, and they're going to get offended and probably a little butthurt about it, if I'm being honest, because you stayed too long in the friend zone. We're not clarifying the difference between them. And then when it goes into, I got to just do it situation, I'm coming in as boss. Here's the situation. Here's what we got to see. And it's a just do it. I don't have time to over explain. See, friends, we explain everything. We want people to feel good. It's true. It happens in your workplace too. But when we have to get into a just do it mode as the boss, we got two hats going on here. We got the just do it and the boss hat. You got to come in and say with your boss hat, hey, I got boss hat on right now, and we're going into just do it. Now, why do I want these as visuals? I'm going to tell you why. And why did I, why is it important that we have all of these hats as visuals for people? Because we are visual, what we're teleological, right? We actually, we think in pictures, we dream in pictures. Words, pictures, emotions. Words create pictures, and we attach emotions to the pictures, and we move in the direction of the dominant emotion. So when I'm giving you the visual exchange between, wow, my values, that's being bumped up against right now, and I've got the values hat on, but I always have my values as a foundation. I always operate from my values as a foundational level. But today I'm coming in as leader, and here's what I need as the leader. And yes, I know that we've been friends in the past, and friends, I've enjoyed the friendship. The friendship doesn't change outside of work. But I had this conversation. Here's my but. And actually it's going to be a 2T one, because I think people sit on this too long. The but of it is that when you are friends outside of work, people aren't sure when you come into work which hat you're wearing. So when you can let people know, hey, outside of work at this barbecue, or at the happy hour, or at the event that we're both at, yeah, we're going to be friendly. And yes, I may be a friend of yours, and maybe you will come over for dinner, your family and our family. That's great. But at work, I've got the leader hat on as the driver. And yes, I'll put the boss hat on when I need to. And beware, the just do it hat may show up as well. It doesn't mean I'm not still going to be friendly with you or be a friend outside of work. This gets tricky for people who are not direct in their communication or confident in the values that they possess and that drive them. When we aren't confident in our own values and our own why and our own reasons for being in leadership, and we stay stuck in the friend zone, it causes more confusion and underperformance in the team. And it causes frustration in the team, and it causes gossip and so many other things. Your people don't want you to be their friend. They want you to lead, and they want the boss to show up to set the expectations of what needs to get done and by when. And they want the boss to show up. Here's really an important piece for boss as well. When you're in boss mode, you've got your boss hat on. Here's what's important to know about that. It's important to know that your team is watching not only how individually you deal with each one of them, but if you have an underperformer on the team, they want to know how you as the boss are dealing with the underperformer. Now, we know that you can't go and say, hey, this is how I'm handling the situation that, Harriet the Hoarder is impacted in our workplace. I can't tell everybody that. I can have the conversation with Harriet about her not sharing of resources and taking everything from people, and it's limiting our ability to be successful, and it's frustrating the team. I can let her know that, and I can let Harriet, as the boss know, I can let Harriet know what I need from her. And then what the team wants to see from me is they want to see me as boss start to make impact and changes with Harriet or move Harriet on. It's also important to know that I can tell my team that as boss, I'm not able to tell you all of the details of who I have conversations with. But what I can tell you is that we're working on making a change. And I would like for you, because I'm the leader as well, right? So I would like for you, this is where the leader shows up. I would like for you to bring to me whatever concerns that you might have where you're not seeing the changes. As the boss, I'm having my conversations that I need to with the team. And as the leader, I'm inviting you to come and talk with me. That's kind of one of those differences also. Where friend can show up is when people come in and talk disrespectfully to you because they think you never, you always, right? And they think you're still showing up as friend and that they can talk to you about how frustrated they are with you and with Harriet. And there's that place where you get to draw the line and say, hold on a minute. So as the leader or as the boss, I'm going to ask for you to change that tone and let's change the conversation. So just some of the ways that the leader hat shows up and the boss hat shows up and the distinction between the two. Remember that leader, I'm coming alongside of you. And there are the times where boss gets to show up and be directive. And we get to say, just do it. And it's not all the time. Like I'm not inserting boss and just do it with everything that's happening in the workplace. I can't. Otherwise, I'm going to burn people out. They're going to take off. They're going to quiet quit on me because they're tired of everything. What is it that I love to say? That an emergency for you does not a fire for me make, right? This, if we do too much time in boss and just do it, constant, it creates that sense of urgency that people then start to turn a deaf ear to it. They start to, the impact of it is not as strong. It dulls. That's the word. It's like a dull knife, right? It's got to cut, it's got to sting, but it's harder to work with. And it gets harder and harder because everything just continues to be that fire zone, rapid fire, got to get it done. That's where we want to pull back, go back to what are the values of the team? What are the core beliefs and the drivers that we have? What are the things that we're working? What are the goals that we're working on? Not everything can be an emergency, right? Let's reprioritize. And that's where your leader shows up. When we go back to a team and we're going to reprioritize and we're going to relook at things, that's where leader shows up. And it's okay for you to say, guys, that, hey, I'm pulling out my hats and we're going to come into this conversation on, I'm coming in as a leader and there's times where I get to make the final decision, which is what your team wants. And that's the boss mode, right? There's the time where we get to be directive in the just do it mode. They need that too. It's important though for you, friend, that you actually let people know as you're flexing into what hat you're wearing. Because when we give them that visual, I am taking off the leader hat and I'm putting on the boss hat, or I'm actually adding the just do it hat to the boss hat, or, I'm going to step out of friend mode for a minute and I want to step into leader mode. And I'm taking off that hat and we're showing the visual of that. I've had so many people say, man, those leader hats, the hats that you have are so impactful, even though I don't have a set, just by saying I'm taking off the friend hat. I recognize, I had this one conversation with one manager. She said to me, she goes, I recognize that I stay in the friend zone way too much with my people. So then when I need them to just do it, they don't know what to believe. They don't think I'm actually being serious, or they think that the timeline I've given them somehow can be flexible. Nope. She said, once I said I'm putting in the leader hat or I'm taking off the friend hat and we're getting into just do it mode, and here's why. I tell them the why, she said, but it all of a sudden changed their level of commitment and even the energy that the team was bringing to the projects that we needed to get done. She recognized she was hanging out way too long in the friend zone, wearing the friend hat, because she thought that was the best way. If people like me, if they really, really like me, then they'll do what I'm asking. And I got to be a friend to that. No, actually, what that is you want to be a strong leader. The people can trust. The people know you're going to cast vision and you're going to give clarity of direction. And they know that when things need to be handled and changed and disrupted, that boss is going to show up, and they respect the times that you use just do it, because it's not all the time, because they recognize that emergency for you does not a fire for them make, and you honor their priorities before you just get into just do it mode. And for you, the importance in all of this is that all of this comes out of your values. All of these drive out of, and the way we intertwine, we weave in these hats, come out of our values. And that's important for you to know. So that's it for today in the sandbox, guys. I just wanted to get in here and share the value of hats. You wear different hats in your role, and it's important for you to tell your people what hat you're wearing at what point in time you're giving that clarity of new direction. Because when you can interchange that, especially if you get into friend zone too much, or you're too heavy-handed on the boss mode and you want to come back to inspiring that shared vision as leaders do, right? That way, when you have a just do it moment, people take notice because it's not all the time. When you can interchange in these hats, it's a game changer for your people. It's a game changer for you for the way that you show up as a leader, the way you show up in your workplace, especially if you got promoted. I tell you what, friend, if you got promoted as a peer over people, I want you to message me. You can hit me up on LinkedIn. You can head on over to the website and send me a message, but message me about what your challenge is, because I'd love to share a conversation, but I will drop tips for you on how to navigate between from a peer to a leader and boss. How do you do that? It's important to know. And these hats will be a great starting point to help you. I am so glad you joined me in the sandbox today. Thank you for taking the time to spend that time with me, because I know that every minute that you invest here makes a difference in your leadership skill set, in your communication skill set, and in the understanding of you, just in your own understanding of you as leader, as boss, whatever the hat is that you're wearing for this moment. I hope that you gain some powerful tips, tools, and strategies to up level that next level conversation for you that you get to have. Thanks for joining me in the sandbox. I'll see you the next time. God bless.
We hope you've been inspired by today's episode. Here's a question for you. What hat do you find yourself stuck in? And what hat do you want to wear more? We'd love to hear from you. DM Tammy today. You can find her at Tammy J Bond on LinkedIn and at The Tammy Bond on Instagram. Thank you for tuning into the Sandbox. Have a happy 4th of July, and God bless.